I'm Alex with Joyline Travel, and today we're going to talk about dining on our Royal Caribbean cruise on Adventure of the Seas. So one thing to note about our dining on this cruise was that we decided not to do any specialty restaurants. I'll talk a little bit about those just to give you the highlights, but one of the things we wanted to do was experience this cruise with minimal funds outside of the fare that we purchased. And so that included dining. And so I'll go through dining on a meal by meal basis, and we'll talk about what our experiences were like, some of the good, some of the bad, maybe some tips and tricks. And if you want that specialty dining experience without having to spend all that upcharge, say for your whole party, we're going to give you one tip if you stay to the end on specialty dining that allows you to get a sample without spending as much money. Before we jump in, I just want to tell everybody thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and we'd really appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up. That like helps us with our channel and gets this information to other families who are looking to travel. Subscribe. We really need to get our subscriber base up. We'd really appreciate your support in doing that if you push the subscribe button. And finally, if you want more information, once you get to the end of this video and you said that was pretty good, I'd like to get more, turn on that notification and we'll let you know when we have another video for you to see. All right, let's get started. I'm going to go through dining on a meal by meal basis. That way I can cover some of the different types of restaurants and our experiences as we went through this cruise. So first off, I want to start with dinner. The evening meal, for us, we selected the early dining. It fits our schedule better and allowed us to stay very similar to the schedule we're on at home. Royal Caribbean will allow you to select one of three types of dining options. Early, which is typically around 5:36 p.m., late, which would be around, say, that 8 o'clock p.m., and then anytime dining, which is where you can make a reservation within the dining window to have a table set. We liked to do the early dining for a couple of reasons. Like I said, it kept us on our schedule, which was really good. Also, we got the same table. So after the first night of checking in, we were able to go to our table without having to check in at the front desk. We could go straight to our table. We knew it was going to be available for us. And we also had the same wait staff. So both the server and the assistant server, always the same. And by the second, third night, they understood what drinks we like to have and how we like to order. They knew what recommendations that we would follow and how to make recommendations for us. So over time, that dining experience got more comfortable and a lot more streamlined, in my opinion, as we went through. In the main dining room, there are two sections to the menu. One is what they call their classics. Now, this part of the menu was consistent every night. It was always the same, be a grilled chicken breast or a steak. There was a pasta dish, a nice variety, but it was always consistent. Now, this was really nice to have if there was something on, say, the themed dining menu, we'll get to that in a moment, that we didn't care for. There was always a nice classic menu item that we could pick from. Also of note, this is really good for anyone that likes consistency or likes to be on a schedule and really needs that. For example, someone maybe that's on the autism spectrum or special needs that doesn't like a lot of change. Both selecting a dining time, like an early or late dining time, and having that classic menu gives them that consistency with dining that helps and makes the cruise more enjoyable for that type of person. So you did have that classic option available to you. Now, as I mentioned, there was also themed nights in which you might have something that was more Italian in nature. And so there was a beef, a chicken, a vegetarian option that was themed for that evening, and the spicing, the service was more along the theme of what you would have. So we really enjoyed that. This food is absolutely excellent in the main dining room. on those evenings. It is top notch. It's a 3-course meal. You usually had some kind of starter. Maybe it was a salad. Potentially it was a soup or some other type of appetizer to get started. I know one night we had cocktail shrimp, another night we had fried cheese sticks, different options for that appetizer. Then you had your entree, typically served with a vegetable and a starch. Really nice, well done meal. There wasn't anything that I had in the evening that was a complaint at all. Very, very well done. And finally, a dessert. And with the dessert, you had the option to get a cup of coffee, decaf for myself, to kind of cut that sweet. I'm one of those people that I really like having a cup of coffee with my dessert. And like I said, after the second night, our servers knew. They would go around, get a count of who wanted coffee. They always brought the decaf, and we enjoyed our dessert with that. As far as drinks go, included in dinner was iced tea, water, and coffee. So, plan accordingly with that. And that was our main dining room experience. It was roughly an hour in length of time, and something we really enjoyed. Also in the evenings, you have the option to go to Windjammer, which is the buffet on deck 11. There you have that buffet experience. It's open seating, so once you get your food, find your table, you can sit down anywhere that's available. They have a salad bar, although I will say Windjammer, at the time we cruised, the food was still being served by the crew. So while it was a buffet, it wasn't served yourself at the time that we're sailing. They did have some pre-made salads and then a salad bar in and of itself. Typical carving station, meats and vegetables on the steam plate. They had a healthier section and bar. They also had a dessert bar, and then they would have coffee, tea, water, and maybe some type of a fruit flavored drink that was included. On Windjammer, they also had themed nights in which certain of the entree dishes served or some of the desserts were along a theme, Caribbean theme, or say Indian food theme from India, those types of things. You could definitely go and enjoy that as well. And finally, from a included in your fare was the Royal Promenade Cafe. And there you had sliced pizza that you could go grab, a slice of pizza, a sandwich or a wrap was available. They served fruit as a side, and then they had about 6 to 10 dessert selections that you could go pick from. They had a coffee stand and a water stand, and that same fruit flavored drink that was available that was included. So as far as included in the fare for an evening meal, that was the venues that we had. Now, just to touch real fast on the specialty restaurants, again, we did not participate in eating any of the specialty restaurants paying the upcharge. Was Izumi, which is Japanese and sushi bar. It's on deck 5. It's actually in the middle of the promenade, and the dining room is somewhat open so that you could look in. Chops Grill, which is their steakhouse, and Giovanni's, the Italian restaurant. Both Chops and Giovanni's are more closed restaurants where, really looking in, it's just from the ship's perspective, you're looking in the front door, that's it. Now, once in the restaurant, you have views of the sea and beautiful restaurants. But unlike Izumi, which is wide open to the promenade, the other two are more traditional restaurant settings. And then finally was Johnny Rockets, again, upcharge, get you burgers, fries, maybe a milkshake. And it was open in the evenings as well. Maybe not as late as some of the other specialty restaurants, but it was there for the upcharge. So that was our evening meals, our dinner. Next, let's talk about breakfast. Breakfast in the main dining room, you would check in each morning and then you would be assigned to a table. So while you are still taken by the crew to a table, it was different and it rotated based on availability each morning. The menu was set. It was somewhat 3-course, maybe 2.5-course, in that when you sat down, you were usually presented with a pastry tray. I know one of our family members had a donut every day of the trip and really enjoyed that. There were muffins and other pastries that were available, and then usually took a drink order. They had coffee, tea, water, and some juices, maybe from concentrate, that were included, and then more of your fruit juices, fresh squeeze type of juices were an upcharge. Be aware of that. Specialty coffees were an upcharge as well on breakfast. Then that set menu. So for breakfast, you had some starters of yogurt, maybe a little yogurt parfait, some fruit bowls, that type of stuff to start with. And then the entrees would be egg dishes, scrambled eggs, eggs your way, eggs Benedict, egg omelet that you could have. And then there was French toast or pancakes as well. We didn't love the breakfast, to be honest. I like eating breakfast in the main dining room. I like being taken care of and being served. I found that when I got the French toast, it was partially cooked. It wasn't that great. I did not send it back. I could have. Decided not to. One piece actually was okay. The other piece was very doughy and did not care for that. The eggs were good, especially if I had something like, say, eggs over easy or the omelet made to order. Those were good. Toast was white or wheat. There wasn't the normal variety I'm used to, say at a land restaurant, things of that nature. And they did have bagels and lox were available as well. So it wasn't a tiny menu, it was fixed. So every morning you had the same offerings. There were no rotational options in the main dining room. Also to note, at select port days, the main dining room did not offer breakfast. And so you needed to look at your cruise compass to make sure what was open for breakfast. So when it wasn't open for breakfast, what did we do? We went to Windjammer. The buffet at Windjammer was open every day for breakfast. They had more offerings, but things were pre-made, obviously, being on the buffet. So scrambled eggs, you had potatoes, you had different meats, bacon, sausage, that type of offering. We found things like biscuits and gravy, which was something not offered in the main dining room, but it was offered up on Windjammer. So definitely some different options, some different hashes. More varieties of fruit were available. And of course they had pastries as well, very similar pastries to what you would have found in the main dining room that was available. They had a yogurt bar. So in addition to yogurt parfaits, you could have plain yogurt, flavored yogurt. They had yogurt mix-ins like granola, different fruits, that type of additional items to put into your yogurt, which was nice. You could get milk in addition to the water and coffee that was available. So it was nice. It is a buffet, so some of the food wasn't as strong as you would expect to get maybe at a sit-down restaurant. But overall, with maybe a few exceptions, I found Windjammer to be a better breakfast experience than going to the main dining room. Now again, this is my opinion, but I was disappointed in the service of the main dining room for breakfast. For the Royal Promenade, they provided lots of fruit and yogurt parfaits as well. They had the pastries that were similar to the other two restaurants that were available for you to select. And then they had breakfast sandwiches, so English muffins with eggs or a meat was available. So you could have that option as well. So it was a nice place to go for breakfast. If you didn't want the crowds or the overwhelming options on Windjammer, Royal Promenade was a good option to go in and grab you a cup of coffee and maybe a breakfast sandwich to eat. So those were our options for breakfast. For lunch, the main dining room was open. Similar to breakfast, you did check in every day and get seated at a table, but it was a different table depending on availability. The menu again was fixed, and it was mainly salads, soups, and sandwiches. It was more of a two-course meal where you had your entree and dessert. I know for a fact at lunch that anything besides iced tea, water, and coffee were an upcharge. We had members of our family that at least one day were feeling a little queasy. We had a rougher day at sea, and in the main dining room they ordered a ginger ale that was gotten from the bar. It was a aluminum can, 12-ounce can that was served. And at the time of sailing, we paid around $4 plus tip. I think it was right under $5 for that can of ginger ale. So something to keep in mind, if you don't have the drinks package and you want a soda with your lunch, it is going to be an upcharge. That menu was fixed. It was the same every time. Least favorite meal of all in the main dining room was lunch. It was a real disappointment to me. I didn't find the food to be that flavorful or that tasty. That's just my opinion. So while breakfast was slightly disappointing, I enjoyed breakfast a lot more than I did lunch. For lunch, also like breakfast, on certain port call days, the main dining room wasn't available. And we split our time when lunch wasn't available between Royal Promenade, where you could get a slice of pizza or a sandwich, in addition to fruit and dessert. Or we would go to Windjammer that had, they had the sandwiches and salads that you would typically see at lunch, but they actually had a carving station. They did have hot food available to serve up. It was a little more dynamic, a little more rotational than what you found in the main dining room. Some slightly different offerings depending on what was available or maybe the theme for that day. So again, Windjammer, I think for lunch wins out over the main dining room. While I do like being served and I do enjoy the atmosphere of the main dining room, the food quality would actually drive me towards Windjammer as a more tasty lunch opportunity. As far as lunch was concerned, we did find Johnny Rockets to be open some days for lunch. And so for an upcharge, that might be a good option to go grab a burger and fries and milkshake, as opposed to the included, Windjammer, Royal Promenade, or main dining room for lunch. So those are also options for you. That was more sea days. Again, it's that demand, right? So when the ship is disembarking for a port call, you have fewer options on board the ship. And as I've mentioned before, we stayed on the ship on this cruise through all the ports. All right, one last thing. Let's talk about snacks. There were some fun places to get snacks. Johnny Rockets again was open, from their lunch hour to dinner, all the way through. When they opened, they just stayed open until they closed on that day. So it was possible to go in and get a milkshake, maybe get some fries, dip it in that milkshake. Again, there is an upcharge for that, but if that was the snack you were looking for, that's a good one to go to. Also on the pool deck, the frozen yogurt was available to go get either vanilla, chocolate, or a swirl. Nice little cone. That was a great snack to have midday. And then the other time, we would end up at the Royal Promenade getting either some fruit and dessert type items for snack, but they also had hard-boiled eggs with little anchovies on them. Actually were pretty good, and some olive plates that you could get for snacks. So if you wanted something a little savory, you had that option. Of course, pizza was being served, so you could grab you a slice of pizza. So those were our dining experiences on Adventure of the Seas. What I'd love to hear from you is, have you done a specialty restaurant on Adventure of the Seas or on any of the Royal Caribbean ships? What was your experience like? Have you tried to cruise without spending on the specialty restaurant? And were your experiences similar to ours? Or did you have a better experience with maybe breakfast or lunch? As I said, for us, it was a little underwhelming. And I told you, if you stayed to this point, I'd give you a special tip. So one of the things that we noticed on the main dining room in the evening, you could order a steak from Chops. Again, it was for an upcharge, but as opposed to paying an upcharge for your entire party going to Chops, and for actually less than the upcharge of spending time in the restaurant, you could have a chopped steak brought up to the main dining room and make that your entree just for that one upcharge for the one person. So I think that's a really cool option for somebody that wants to try the specialty restaurant, but maybe doesn't want to spend as much, for the whole family, or just wants to know, well, what's the difference in the specialty offering that was there? Again, we didn't take that option, but I think on the next cruise I do with Royal Caribbean, that's one I'm going to try out, and I'll report back how it turns out. So we're really glad that you were with us today. Thanks for being here. And remember, at Storyline Travel, we believe every adventure is a story waiting to be told.